All right, I'm a York stupid dog, and this is one of the most weirdest, darkest, deepest, screwed up, demented. You got to go see a psychologist after you listen to this weird, crazy Johnny Depp movie. This Johnny Depp movie was so sinisterly disturbing, it was almost Shakespearean. This was a Shakespearean Johnny Depp movie. I'm just gonna cut to the quick. This movie featured Johnny Depp as this guy who would once a year go upstate. I don't know what state it was. It was a rural state. It wasn't a rural state, but it was a state like New York, maybe Connecticut, maybe Vermont that had its fair share of urbanite. Pennsylvania, urbanite, but it had a lot of rural. I think it could have been upstate New York. I'm not sure. Maybe it was upstate Oregon. Who knows? Maybe it was upstate Ottawa up there in Canada. Who knows? Anyways, Johnny, he was a city kid who would go to this really rural town. And in this rural town, which was in America, I'm pretty sure it was in America, they had a lot of, they had a lot of influences of, I don't know if it was like Scotland or where, that they built they built these stone bridges and then they became moss covered. And after hundreds of years, there were these quaint, beautiful, picturesque things with the water trickling underneath and the moss covered stones on top. It was, the town was built into the hillsides and into the lanes twisted and turned. It was mankind trying to fit himself into the environment. Okay. And this Johnny Depp movie was all about mankind trying to accommodate himself to the environment. So, but who knows what's going to happen up there in those deep, dark woods, of I don't want to say the nethersphere, but the weirdo, the offbeaten, where there's a lot of weirdos who maybe they don't have as much authority. There's not so many people, so the weirdos can run rampant. It's a weird thing. But in this rural setting, this stone, it was in America. Maybe it was upstate New York. But Johnny was walking around. He came in for a few weeks, every once in a while. And he had this beef with this skinny guy. This skinny guy didn't look that tough. Johnny knew that he could whoop his ass. So Johnny was like, I'll give you respect. But so he had overstayed his welcome. And all of a sudden, the winter had started to set in. And there was a little bit of ice and snow, but it was still warm. It was like 40-some degrees, but there was ice and snow all over the place. And Johnny was walking through this European-esque town, twisting lanes. It's like you didn't even need a car to live in this town. I don't even know what they did for work. I don't know how they made a living. But anyways, Johnny was walking down the road with one of his very best friends, and he went to leap over the edge where this bridge crossed a creek, and he went to leap over a little piece of the creek, and he landed on the bridge, but it was what he thought was the bridge was an extension of crusted ice and snow. His foot fell through, but thank God his momentum carried him up onto the bridge, and he landed on the bridge. And one of his deep, dark menaces, this guy always picked on him. This guy was a bully, but Johnny knew he could kick his ass. He says, "Oh, damn, I wish you wouldn't have made that leap. I'm glad I saw that." And Johnny said something. I don't even know what Johnny said. He said, "Just keep walking, bozo. Just keep walking." Well, anyways, Johnny and his friend got up. Johnny dusted himself off. Johnny walked just a few steps back. He got on a cobble street, a lane. And just in a few more steps, he walked to the back of a restaurant that was still open, that was serving hot toddies and good, delicious beverages to warm your cockles, the cockles of your soul. Maybe that's some good fare, like, some kind of cheese bread or something, Maybe they were making delicious toasty brie. But anyways, this guy who had picked on Johnny a lot of times, who said, he made that comment, I'm glad I saw that. And Johnny said, "Just keep walking, bozo." That mean guy, that weirdo guy, Johnny's antithesis, he was pushing a baby stroller, and he was walking with one of his friends. When Johnny ducked into that restaurant or came up to that restaurant, he looked back. He just happened to look back, and that mean guy noticed that Johnny was going to the restaurant. Johnny was pausing, and Johnny saw that guy say to his friend, "Watch my young son." And he gave him the reins of the baby stroller. And Johnny didn't see that guy starting to come back towards him, But Johnny was like, uh-oh. Johnny walked, up on the footstool, and his companion went in just to use the bathroom of this restaurant, the back door of the restaurant. Johnny stood there on the stoop, and this guy comes walking up with his big giant Bowie knife half unsheathed. He was holding it up with his left hand towards Johnny like, I'm going to unsheath the rest of this Bowie knife and I'm going to cut you. And Johnny's like, holy crap. And Johnny's like, hey, I'll fight you with my fist. Put your Bowie knife away. And that guy, he was reaching to his back pocket, and Johnny knew right then and there that guy was going to pull out his handgun. And Johnny was like, holy shit. And he starts slinking back towards that door, the back door of that restaurant. And that guy was holding up, it was a leather sheath with a lot of strings hanging down, like they had in the old days, the Danny Crockett days, when they would like have something buckskin and they let little strands of the buckskin hang down. That was a sheath that looked like an Apache sheath, Apache Indian sheath, or maybe a Danny Boone, buckskin sheath, and that big giant Bowie knife was half out. And he was holding his left hand, but he was digging his back pocket for his gun, and he pulled out his gun and he pointed it right at poor Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp went back into the door of that restaurant, and that guy's like, you do not run your mouth on me. I do not want to hear your voice. And Johnny's like, yes, sir, I didn't know. I said, I thought we could fight like men. And that guy's like, no, we're not going to fight like men. I'm going to kill you with this pistol, you stupid bastard. And if I have to go to jail for the rest of my life, so be it. He was like waving that Bowie knife. Like the Bowie knife would have been bad enough, but he digged in his pocket, he pulled his pistol, and he put this pistol right towards Johnny's thoracics, right to his chest. Johnny's like, holy shit. He went in there, he shut the door, he yelled out. He's like, I hear you, don't worry. And that guy's like, I do not want to hear that voice of yours. Do not stand up to me. I run this town. I don't take no bullshit from you. And Johnny slunk back in terror. Well, that guy walked away. That guy went back to his companion, and that guy started pushing his little baby stroller, okay? So this is the really weird part. You thought that was bad? That's not the bad part. The bad part was where Johnny was looking around trying to see where he could get a knife, where he could get a pistol. Johnny made up his mind he was going to run up to the guy and shoot that guy in his head, saying, you want to scare me that bad? You think you can dictate to me that I have to live in fear for you? You think you can dictate back to me that I cannot come up in this beautiful enclave, this beautiful town, and be part of this life, and my life down in the city would be the biggest part of my life, but I could have a little extra life, a different compartmentalized life up here, and that would be something so great that I could have. It's like extra life, and you're going to deny me that because you're a homegrown piece of white trash asshole who thinks just because you bully everyone around you can bully me. So Johnny's like, I'm going to get a gun, I'm going to shoot him in his head, and I don't care if I got to go to jail. Johnny's like, when I see that guy's face, when I shoot him in the head, that'd be all the joy I need. Anyways, Johnny couldn't bum a knife off this one. He couldn't bum a gun off that one. And he started thinking, I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm going to walk up there. And he raced. He jogged away through all these dark lanes and it was all moss covered. It was all dewy. It was all dark. It was dark. It was like in the November, but it was up north, so it was like winter. He ran way ahead, and he came across one of these bridges, one of these overpasses that was built like 500 years earlier. And the stones that formed this bridge, they were just so loose. He figured what he was going to do is wait for that bad guy and his companion and the bad guy who was pushing the baby stroller to walk underneath him. He was going to drop a stone on the guy. He was going to crush that guy because he couldn't come up with a pistol to shoot that guy in his head. He wanted to shoot that guy in his throat. He wanted to shoot that guy and watch him bleed out. But he said, you know what? I'm going to have to just drop this stone on this guy. And I'm going to drop it on his back so I don't kill that little baby. I'm not going to drop it on his head. I'm going to drop it right on the back of his neck. And if he doesn't die, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to stomp his brains out like you stomp a squirrel. Maybe you reach into your game bag and the squirrel that you shot out of the tree with your 20-gauge shotgun is not dead yet, so then you stomp its brains out right there and maybe the mud, his brains don't really want to, come out because the head is like squishing down the mud and you can't really get a good, you're stomping on it, but you can't get a big, you're stomping him in the mud, he's squishing the mud, so his brains don't really come out, and you don't even give a shit, so you strangle the squirrel and then you stuck it in your game bag. Johnny's like, I'm going to drop this big giant cobblestone on this guy. I don't know if it was a cobblestone, some kind of a big giant stone that was part of this bridge. So Johnny was waiting. He crouched down. That guy couldn't see him. The bad guy pushing the stroller with his little newborn son on it. Well, lo and behold, this guy, he walks underneath that. Johnny walks right up. One of the stones that was just loose. That was like a guardrail stone. It was just loose. It could have fallen off at any time. Johnny waited. He kind of held it out a little bit, and then he let it fall out of his wrist, and it smashed right down on the baby stroller, and it killed that baby. And that guy looked right up, and he saw Johnny. And Johnny was horror-stricken because he not only was, Johnny was so horror-stricken by what that weirdo mean guy was going to do to him for killing that weirdo mean guy's son. That weirdo mean guy, the only good part of his life, the only thing that he had going for him, the only thing that drew him towards goodness was that boy, that little baby boy. And Johnny just dropped a stone on it, smushed that baby. And that mean man hollered and wailed and cried. But before he did that, he looked up and saw who dropped the stone. And Johnny was smart enough to duck down. That guy probably knew it was Johnny anyways. And Johnny and that guy met eye to eye, and it was so bad. And the guy's companion, he scooped up the baby, and that guy, he looked at his smushed baby, and he wailed, and he cried. And Johnny's like, oh, my God. Well, suffice to say, I'm not even getting into this. This part of the movie goes on and on and on. Johnny's running. Johnny's trying to hide. But Johnny doesn't leave the enclave. Johnny doesn't leave this village because he knows this is where his fate has drawn him, and this is where his fate will be determined. And he has this big showdown with this guy, and they have this big fight. They have a knife fight. Johnny comes close to winning the knife fight. Johnny cuts the guy right in his throat. The guy starts bleeding out like a stuck pig, but it didn't catch his main artery, his carotid artery, or whatever you call it up there. You know what I'm saying? Up in the throat. So anyways, this guy winds up winning the tussle between Johnny and the mean man, and then he tortures Johnny and he kills Johnny. Eventually, he drowns Johnny in a pigsty. He cuts off lots of pieces of Johnny. This movie goes on and on. It's like Saw 3, you know what I'm saying? It was disgusting. Anyways, Johnny gets cut up. He gets murdered, and he finally, when he's still alive, he gets drowned in a muddy solution of pig slop. It was so horrible. You're like, why does the mean guy win? Why does the mean guy win and poor Johnny? Johnny should have been able to shoot that guy or do something. And plus, Johnny almost won, and that guy somehow, you're like, why do you let the bad guy win? I mean, why do you let the bad guy win? Well, anyways, the movie drones on a little bit longer, and everybody up there, and the guy gets off scot-free, and the police don't even give him no trouble, and he's a big bully, so the judges and everybody, the politicians are all afraid of this guy. This guy was a little mealy-mouthed son of a bitch. I don't even know why he commanded such authority, why everybody's so afraid of him, but they were. It must have been because he had this mean, dark, this almost demonic presence that everybody's like, oh my God, don't mess with him because he'll get you in the end. And he got Johnny. And, I thought Johnny was going to win. I thought the whole movie was set up where, like, Johnny was going to win, but Johnny had to atone for killing that little innocent boy. The mean man had a beautiful child, and Johnny killed him by mistake, and Johnny knew the jig was up. Johnny even stayed up there in the village so he could take what was coming to him. He took his comeuppance, and it was brutal. And it went on and on and on. It's like, what? This is like a snuff film. Why do you got to keep doing it this way? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm a stupid dog, but the movie drones on a little bit longer, and you realize that the bad guy, he didn't win in the end because the movie that shows him going back to his house, his little cabin, when everybody's afraid of him and everybody in the neighborhood is like super scared because now there's nothing to hold him back from just being a mean, stupid, badass son of a bitch. Well, anyways, he goes back every night and he cries and he wails and he's so distraught because his son, the one thing that was made his life worth living, was taken from him. And he doesn't want to kill himself. Do you think the guy would just kill himself, but he's religious? See, there's a little twinkle, a little inkling of goodness in him. So he doesn't want to kill himself because he knows then maybe he won't get resurrected and get to go to heaven because that's what he was taught by the priests and their Catholics and whatever. But anyways, you think that bad guy wins, and Johnny, who suffered a horrific, horrifying death that just went on and on and on, you thought, God, Johnny was the good one. This guy was the bad one. Why'd the bad one win? But then you've come to find out as the movie drones on and goes on and on. This guy, he's so distraught. He's so filled with angst. Every day finishes up with him bawling and crying and barely being able to sleep and being woken from his dreams. In his dreams, he always sees his little boy, and he's pushing the stroller along, which was the pride and joy of his life, just tending to his little boy. No one even knew how he got the little boy. What woman did this guy impregnate? No one knew. No one understood what was going on, but this little boy was the pride and joy of his life, and he cherished the boy, and he'd have his dreams, and the movie ends with him up in his cabin up in the woods after he did some heinous things and some crapola things, and he was being mean to everybody and being extra mean because he was so miserable. And he goes in, he drinks himself to sleep, and he sleeps for a little while. But then they show what his dreams were, and his dreams were he's like coddling a little boy. He's like swaddling his little boy in a little baby blue blanket, and he's talking to his little boy, and he's like cooing with his little boy, and he's so happy. And then all of a sudden he wakes up, and for a split second he thinks his little boy's still alive. He doesn't understand that it was just a dream, just for a split second. But then as soon as he realizes it was just a dream, and Johnny Depp dropped a big ginormous rock on his little boy and crushed him and killed him, and he doesn't have his little boy anymore, then he just bursts out bawling and crying. He just is so distraught. And that's what happens night after night after night. So you realize this guy's just tortured. This guy's just tortured by his whole existence. And he wishes he could end it all, but he's afraid to end it all because a certain little part of him believes in God, so he doesn't want to commit suicide. And so he just keeps going on and on, suffering. It's like he's in his own purgatory, his own hell. He's in his own horrifying, never-ending torture. And you realize he lost. Johnny was dead. Johnny was mercifully, Johnny was finally dead. Johnny wasn't suffering anymore, but the bad guy, he continued to suffer. And this was just one of those really weird Johnny Depp movies. Like, you didn't even want to figure out what were they thinking when they made this movie. I mean, stupid dog. I was wondering, what the frick are you thinking? Why would you make a movie like this? And who's stupid enough to watch the whole thing, to get the whole import, to get the whole significance and get the whole impact of the whole movie? Why would he even do it? Who would, Who would make it? Who would watch it? I didn't even understand. To me, it was all just super perplexing. I mean, stupid dog, I didn't even know why it happened. I didn't even know. I couldn't understand anything about it. But I just want to say this much. Usually I like to say it's going to be all right. But after I watched that whole movie, I hope it's going to be all right. But I don't even think so. I mean, I hope it's going to be all right. I don't even know.